Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement.
Welcome back to the Larkcast. My name's Tony, and with me today is the Rastafarian himself.
Good name, man.
The Rastafarian.
I like that.
You don't got no dreads, though.
No, I'm not. Yeah, that ship sailed, man, long time ago. People always tell me I should cut my youngest son Eli's hair. Well, some people, they love it, and other people are like, man, you should probably cut his hair. And I'm like, I can't. I'm selfish, vicariously living through it.
I thought they were saying like harvest his hair for like a wig for you or something.
That would be kind of cool, man. Like, if I could pull it off. But I feel like if I went back to like long blonde hair, like when I was young, I'd have to probably get fit again. Kind of helps like to be in shape when you have hair like that.
Yeah, you don't need to be walking around looking like Mickey Rourke,
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Like, is that Russ, or is that like a young Hulk Hogan who's moving into?
I saw a thing. Hogan had a birthday
over the hill.
Hogan had a birthday recently. All the homies, were out there. King Kong Bundy and they were all out there. Ric Flair.
Oh yeah, dude.
Big Show.
Yeah. Yeah, man. He was something, man. Definitely a big deal where I grew up, just because that's where he's from. And yeah, man, Hulk Hogan, he's like up there with Burt Reynolds and Tom Petty, man. It's like the Florida Trinity.
Yeah.
Which is probably like, on one hand, that's like really cool, right? But then like on the other hand, it's like, ooh, is that really like, that's our top three? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And you kind of, you find yourself going back and forth on that one. But true story.
I was a big WWF fan, being a kid that grew up in the 90s. They used to have these WWF, the dolls, or the toys that first came out. You remember this? Yeah, they were like thick rubber. Like these things weighed like 1.5 pounds a piece. Yeah, man.
You'd knock a friend out with it, dude.
Oh, 100%. But then the ring they gave you was this cheap plastic thing. And you would like pull the guys back on the ropes and like try to snap them back. And these toys were so heavy, it would always like tip the ring.
Yep.
So it was like the nature of the toys, and like, the ratio of like weight to the toys to the ring. Like it was just way off.
Dude,
it was always really frustrating.
It is. It's like the journey of faith, right? It's like following Jesus, like that ratio of the scriptures to life to experience. It's always off.
Yeah, it just didn't work. The ring wasn't robust enough to really allow for, the play kind of a thing, which kind of leads into, this is my pastoral moment. I did not know this was going to be the illustration. But the whole idea of proving that you're a genuine Christian, kind of keeping up with a certain level of performance, kind of that real radical introspection that
Yep.
some have told us that needs to take place, looking at ourselves and really focusing on our love, our works, our faith in order to be suitable to be the kind of believers in the world, whether you want to go the personal piety route of is there enough love, to the missional discipleship route, is there enough fruit, you know what I'm saying, in like quote unquote making disciples or whatever. It's too fragile of a paradigm to really allow for the play, to really allow
Yes.
for love to take root. And if you're just joining us, we're kind of like doing a series of podcasts called Yeah But, and it's all the pushbacks we get when we just talk about grace and it's unadulterated. Speak about grace in an unadulterated way. We always get yeah buts. And it's like, yeah, I hear you guys saying like we're free, we're free, we're free, we're free, we're free. But man, in Galatians 5, it says, you know, use your freedom to serve one another in love.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, yeah.
You, I do the same thing when I hear that from people.
You just brought that up as if it was like, you know, gotcha, bitch. You know, like, yeah. Yes, we agree with that. In fact, let's probe this a little farther, because it's our opinion that it's only freedom that will truly allow you to do that. If it's in freedom, serve one another in love, only freedom can get you to really truly do that, because only freedom takes your eyes off of yourself, your track record, your earning, your radical introspection, and put your eyes onto others. So it frees you from the madness of, right, the spirituality, the Christianity that's always saying like, well, is this true saving faith?
Right.
If I'm always having to focus on my faith being true and saving, then all my works, all my performance, and all my efforts will forever be about proving myself. So at the end of the day, who am I really serving?
Yeah. In Romans, you know, the Apostle Paul says, for that which does not proceed from faith is sin. Okay. It's a lot of scholars would say it's the most radical indictment of human virtue in all of Scripture. So whatever you do, no matter how great and polished and beautiful it looks, no matter how many likes it gets, if it's not flowing out of trust, okay, in Jesus, out of being lost in Jesus, then it is ultimately about you. It's sin. It's self-reliance. In other words, it's another mechanism for which you go about justifying yourself in the name of, right, doing good. But I think what we have to realize is within the faith community, within the Christian community, that's ultimately what we're being taught. Like in the name of faithfulness, you're actually faithless. Seriously, our what we're calling faithfulness is faithlessness. And it goes right into what you were just talking about. This faith that's in Jesus sets you free from this endless project of self. It actually leads fully into everything you're talking about in Galatians. But because we get fixated on faith and preserving it and perfecting it and performing in it,
right?
Well, now the story is all about you.
Yep.
And you know, we hear it all the time, man. Like, what story are you writing? Write a better story, you know? And I'm like, it sounds good, but it's appealing. Don't get me wrong. I hear it and I get the whole story thing. You just have to be cautious because, you know, Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. In other words, there's like, find the freedom that comes with getting lost in me. People who have been to the electric chair aren't writing better stories. They're not ambitious. They're actually just free falling in the freedom that's found in Jesus and just joining in whatever God's doing today.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
Well, and two, like even when we it's been pretty popular to talk about, the gospel in like a meta narrative way, like we started in Eden, it was lost, and Jesus came down, he lived, died, and rose again. And then now we're kind of like, we're being redeemed, to head back to, Eden, so to speak. And we talked about this in the previous episode that's it's kind of like the caged soul, like the platonic version of the gospel, that Jesus comes down as like a empowering person to get us back to um the beauty of Eden, the um the innocence of Eden, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the focus is really kind of like we seem to be the main character, and like getting back is like the goal. um and in that scenario, talking about story, you're sharing the gospel in a like a story or like a narrative sense, but it seems to be that we're the central figure, and God, Jesus, is kind of like helping us get back there.
Yeah.
But the cross demands that it be its own story, that you get lost in it, that you
Yeah.
have nothing, that you have, it just demands that it's its own story, that it's cruciform, it's crucified. um and so like, dude, are you getting folded into his story, or is he kind of like helping you navigate yours? And so being
Yeah.
lost in Jesus, um being having an understanding that it's that everything flows down from him, and then if
Mm-hmm.
there's anything that moves after that, it keeps flowing down and outward, not back up. Which is the whole argument with, the faith without works is, dead, sort of thing. And because
Good
we get
point.
that one a lot, too. And in James, when that gets brought up, the scenario is, it's like the most easiest serve your neighbor scenario in the history of the world.
Right.
It's a brother at your door who's cold and needs a little bit of food. And what James is saying is like, your faith, like, you discourses on the gospel, your personal doctrinal statement, you know what I'm saying, like what, how you see the world and the scriptures and all that kind of stuff, it's just not going to put food in that dude's belly and put a shirt on this guy's back.
Yeah.
So to this guy, your faith is dead. It doesn't do anything. But we have to understand a couple things. One, James isn't saying world hunger is at your door. It's just a brother. Right. I remember this one time we were kicking it at my house for a St. Patty's Day party, and we got this, knock at the door. It was this girl, like she was in a truck with her asshole boyfriend. Literally, they got into a fight, and he like kicked her out of the truck while the truck was moving. She thought she broke her wrist. She was crying. She was like distressed. Like we were the
Mm.
only house on the block with like lights on, and she could see people inside. And she knocked on the door. My buddy Brandon was like, "Where's this dude? I'm gonna kick his ass." He's just one of those like Peter dudes. Like he's just gonna grab a sword. Like, let's go get this dude. And of course, we like, called the ambulance, and they came, and of course there was some domestic stuff. So, she
Yeah.
reported that, and all that. And it was just like, yeah, when someone's at your door in distress, like I don't even think that that's even like exclusively like a Christian thing to like help someone like that. I think what he's just proving a point of like, dude, like all your doctrinal statements, all this like lofty conversation, all this like idea of
Mm-hmm.
faith, like there's just a simplicity of just loving, a brother, loving a neighbor.
Yeah. It makes me think of that show Entourage. I forget which season it is, man, but there's that director in there, the crazy dude, Billy Walsh,
I haven't
who
seen the show.
okay, so I'll just make it quick then here. So Billy, he's this crazy director, and I mean he's like a wild character, man, but he comes back later on in in this, these seasons. And he's clean, he's sober, he's now married. And they're like, "You're married?" He's like, "Yeah, and I've got kids." They're like, "You've got a kid?" He's like, "4." And they're like, "Wait, what? Well, you've only been gone for like 2.5 years." And he's like, "Well, a set of Irish twins and a set of actual twins." And because, man, I found the love of my life, and man, we just really thought we could live on love. But he says this line. He goes, "But we found out that kids can't eat love.
Mm.
I need a job."
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, it's just that simple.
It's
There's
just that
someone at
simple.
your door that's in need. This isn't something you're going to tweet about or post or make a video on. It's help someone at your door, because
Mm-hmm.
your personal beliefs in Jesus, although amen, they're what allow you to enjoy the reality of freedom found in the God who made and loved and holds you.
Mm-hmm.
They're of no value to the person at your door who's hungry. So
Yep.
just feed them.
Yep.
But again, like you said, man, people take that and turn it into like, well, what do you guys mean by freedom? Are you use your freedom to serve people? Because faith without works is dead. And it's like, man, you just rattled together a number of verses that you just took way out of context. And by the way, we know that it says use your freedom for good. That's
Yeah.
the beauty and the joy of being free, dude. This isn't oh crap, man. I gotta go, you know, I gotta jump back into the machine of institutional church now because I'm enjoying my freedom too much. It's like, come on, man. Stop. That's not even what it says.
It's not even what it says. And again, like there has to be a culture of freedom because we are so obsessed and absorbed with ourselves.
Mm,
And again, like to bring up it, I think it's very easy for church folks to think of selfishness and a love of self as only expressing itself in rebellious ways or going off and just fulfilling yourself with like the world, you know?
yeah.
And when we
Yeah.
think of the world, we primarily think of the world as just the rebellious nature, the indulgence, the hedonism of all the vices of the world. But one of my biggest ahas from the John series, and then even Travis posted the verse in First Corinthians 2, where he says, "Where's the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made the wisdom of this world foolishness in light of the cross?" And in there, he calls both the teacher of the law, the Jews, the religious institution, and the Greeks, the philosophers of the age. He calls them both the wisdom of the world.
Yeah.
And so to not see that selfishness, that self-absorption, it expresses itself in spiritual, you know what I'm saying, churchy,
Yeah.
moral ways too. And I just feel like we've said that, but I feel like we have to keep saying it because we think if there's a veneer, just because it has a veneer of some Bible verses, or it happens
Right.
inside of a church, or it happens inside of a discipleship culture, that all of a sudden, like, oh, yo, this is a Jesus thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, dude, you've just slapped a nice biblical and theological veneer over literally self-absorption, radical
Yes.
introspection, where you're constantly needing to prove and improve yourself and prove yourself. And that that's not the freedom that Paul's talking about in Galatians 5 at all.
No, there's a better story that you need to write, and you need to get busy writing it. Life short sort of mentality um gets dragged into the church culture all the time, and what we're calling faith is just, it's religion. You're talking about breeding narcissism here. We're calling it faithful and self-forgetful, right? Beautiful, but it's like, no, this is self-absorbing narcissism under the banner of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the parables, the way Jesus tells it, Um, none of this gets brought into the kingdom. In fact, everyone who was trying to get to the winner circle and hold up a good resume winds up on the outside at the end of every single one of the stories that Jesus unpacks about the kingdom of God.
Right.
The person who says, I have no resume to hold up, I've been lost in the life of Christ, who now is my life.
Mm-hmm.
And in that freedom, I'm learning to
Yep.
not just enjoy freedom, but to serve out of this freedom. That's the opposite, right? And so I think what we need to just kind of learn is we need to train ourselves. And when we see things under the banner of Jesus, you almost need to start looking at like just follow the rabbit trail of it. You know what I mean? Go down the tree trunk to the roots. Look at the motivation in something. It can sound really oh man, this is faithful, until you get in and go, no, actually this is faithless.
Yep.
This is
So
done out of no faith.
yeah, just so you hear this from us, um, dude, love has come down from above. We're born from above. Um, because I've been awakened to the love of God in Christ. It's just a work of him to put that love deep, deep down in our hearts. And I think that that's just the mark of his kids is you have the spirit in you that's just constantly pushing those places, man, where we're just being selfish. He's
Yeah.
constantly nudging us towards love, towards reconciliation, towards encouragement, towards, passing on what he's really like to others. It's the fruit of him. He's already at work doing that. The love of God is in us. And yeah, man, I just embrace that and encourage that and know that. And if you
Mm.
try to muddle that, like what was happening in Galatians, if you try to muddle that with law and performance, you're going to screw it all up.
Yeah, man. It really does get lost. It's so true. And please, I would just want to say this to everybody listening in. Don't hear us say like be gun shy and and constantly, question every motive and spend your life in this analysis, the paralysis of analysis, right?
Yeah.
Which is really easy to do. Am I doing this for the right reason? I don't know. I want to really help this homeless guy, but maybe it's coming out of a place of religion. Nope, forget it. I'm just gonna, say it's like
Yeah.
no, that's not what I think Paul's revealing here. I think he's inviting us into what Jesus has revealed, which is to get lost in the life of Christ
Yeah. Because the
and to
beginning, go ahead.
just to watch freedom become the means instead of the end. Freedom isn't something you're moving toward. Freedom is something you already have.
Yes.
Let that be the means
Mm-hmm.
of just, Lord, what are you doing today? Just like Jesus, Father, what are you doing today?
Yeah.
And just enjoy stepping into whatever it is, however
Mm-hmm.
messy it is, and just find that freedom that you don't need to make much of it. You don't need to turn it into something grand. It doesn't need to go viral. Um, in fact, if it's of Jesus, it probably won't ever go viral. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, let it just be that simple.
Let it be that simple. And you mentioned that pre-show about it, not being, an end and not being a goal. And we usually talk about freedom. The only time I heard freedom was this idea of like freedom from sin. And what we meant was like the practical nature of like being free from the power of sin, meaning I start to like, sin less practically, meaning I don't keep stepping in this freaking like hole, I don't
Yeah.
keep like just like that
Yep.
sheep, in that
Video.
viral TikTok video. You pull him out of the, the trench and he just jumps right back into it.
Woo!
Like I always thought freedom, oh, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I'll be free when I stop like doing, these things. But in the passage, Galatians 5:13, freedom's a given. Chapter 5, verse 1 starts off where, for the sake of freedom, you've been set free.
Mm.
For the sake of freedom, you've been set free. Use this freedom not to focus on yourself. And I can't help but think that Paul has those teachers from James Church who came down, who were muddying the grace-filled waters, the
Mm-hmm.
free waters of what the Spirit brought about by faith with performance. And what he's saying is, dude, all that's going to do is just cause you to look at yourself. It's that thing is not going to get this love, right? This culture of grace, or what grace can produce in a community and in friendships. You're not going to get there, because you're going to be constantly dotting I's and crossing T's of your own story.
Yeah. And we speak from experience. I have lots of years of living under the tyranny of what am I doing and what others around me are doing.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Exhausting.
And as much as we try to convince ourselves that, well, man, like the life of following Jesus is hard, man, that's why it's exhausting. It's like, no, it's exhausting because you're working in opposition to reality. That's why it's exhausting. It's not exhausting because you're digging, a fence, man, for your neighbor who's, got hurt on the job, man. This is very different.
Mm-hmm.
So let freedom be the means.
Yep.
Instead of the end, because that's what it is.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, man. Till next time.
Till
Cheers.
next time.